enacted because we have to reduce our net carbon emissions by 2050. That said, climate change is already a reality, and it is a challenge that we have to attack head-on by transforming our societies and our economies. We are now at a key moment. Our planet has been subject to pressures that go beyond its capacity, that challenge it, that affect ecosystems, that affect the supply of foods, coastal areas, water supply, climate, and pollination of plants, which has grave consequences for society and the economy. We have to overturn and change this and go back to a new type of prosperity that is decarbonized, that respects climate change and the environment, so as to assure the future for future generations. In the last few years, climate change has showed its effects in tragic ways in our countries. These are not future projections. These are realities that are hitting our lives. According to the State Meteorological Agency, in 2023, 2024 were the warmest on record since 1971, and 2024 and 2023 in the Mediterranean area hit temperatures that have not been seen since millennia. In terms of health, heat waves have directly cost 24,000 direct deaths, according to the Charles III Health Agency. And we are seeing a two-edged reality. One is we have ever more severe droughts coupled with unprecedented flooding. In 2023 and 2024 in Spain, we'd see some areas with the worst droughts on record that severely affected agriculture, ecosystems, and water supply, while at the same time in the eastern part of the country, torrential rains went over 60 millimeters per day, which caused devastating floods. It is believed that an average reduction of 3 to 7% of water resources in 2010 to 2024 would increase until 2070 and 24% up until 2100. And in some areas of Spain, the values are much higher. And at the same time, especially in the Mediterranean basin, because of the water temperatures rising higher than the average, we see even worse predictions. And we see that arid areas in peninsular Spain went from 10.4% in 1951 to 1980, increased significantly up until 2020, and this affected ecosystems as well as agriculture and biodiversity. Furthermore, in 2022, forest fires burned more than 300,000 hectares, and even though we don't see a clear increasing trend, but we do see that there are ever more forest fires. That is a clear threat. So it is urgent to stop feeding this cycle and to achieve carbon neutrality. We also need to adopt ambitious measures that protect people, protect our ecosystems, and protect our economic activity. Spain is in a particularly vulnerable area, which is the Mediterranean. It means that we need to consolidate risk management. And we have an energy and climate strategic framework in Spain, which is a complete agenda that tries to take climate damage and try to find ways to make it an opportunity. And we hope to achieve zero greenhouse effect by 2050, and at the same time make sure that the Spanish economy becomes more prosperous, guarantees energy safety, that allows for technological and industrial advances, and more. There are 5 key measures to this objective. The climate change and energy transition law has institutional goals to align Spain with worldwide climate change objectives, and we hope to achieve carbon neutrality in the next decade, and also the climate change. We have another plan, and we hope to be less vulnerable to climate change. The fair transition guarantees balanced equality during this transition so that nobody is left behind. And also we have a longer-term goal that has a roadmap to change all economic activities in a fair manner. We cannot forget that given climate change, mitigation and adaptation, those are 2 sides of the same coin. Without ambitious mitigation measures, the adaptation will be more difficult, more expensive, and less effective. And in the long term, our adaptive capacity will be overwhelmed. Either way, the huge inertia that comes with climate change means that we need to work on adaptation measures. The ultimate objective is to mitigate or reduce damage and to have a better capacity to bounce back and to rebuild in a constructive manner so that we will not be subjected to the same problems in the future. Climate change adaptation is needed in our country, and we should not surrender. We must confront this. We must adapt, and the adaptation must be a long-term policy that we tackle with shared vigor, because we can only adapt properly if everybody is on board. And in order to do this, we have to have strategies that are linked, and this is where the National Adaptation Plan plays a key role. This document is a strategic document that allows for coordinated attack. This plan establishes working adaptation work plans, different types of papers to make it easier to apply these measures in 5-year chunks. So from 2021 to 2030, we have a roadmap. It allows for consistent and coordinated working between different state agencies, and also takes measures to reduce the impact of climate change. There are 18 key areas that include to strengthen sustainable use of water, to make it available in a context of even more rarity and droughts, also to protect our marine flora and fauna by protecting nature reserves, also to protect livestock and agriculture, and adapting to extreme climate change, and also to guarantee food safety and security, also to mitigate the effects of to improve urban planning and have a better prepared infrastructure to fight against sea level rising and also other natural disasters, also to promote sustainable tourism while protecting the industry. And also, we want to raise awareness among the population so that we have inclusive and effective adaptation, so that in 2021-2025 we have cross-cutting measures to adapt to climate change in all sectors of the all aspects of the public sector. More than 18 ministries, along with other independent organizations and public institutions, are working on implementing the measures in the first work plan. There are 30 strategic documents, plans, and sectoral plans that have been promoted in the last 4 years, and included in that is how to deal with climate change, which is a significant advance on how we deal with this in public institutions. Scientific evidence shows, without a doubt, that we need to continue ambitious policies so that we can go to a low-carbon future, one that is much more respectful of nature and the environment. The strategic plan on the environment has plans that are backed up by scientific proof, that are in line with other policies at the EU and with the Paris Accords. And the climate change adaptation plan includes climate provisions that were supplied by a climate change task force, and also with data provided by different scientific institutions and universities that provide us with different types of ideas to deal with, to protect biodiversity, public health, etc. Scientific understanding of climate change rests on understanding our ecosystem, how it's evolved, and also to understand the effect of possible future scenarios. Scientific research about the physics of the climate is a key foundation for when we build these different answers to fighting climate change. That's why we have the third report on climate change in Spain. It is updated as research becomes available and updated, and it is based on also information by IPCC and allows us to, and it was drafted by the CLIVAR committee in Spain, and it takes stock of where we are. We see that temperatures have risen, that droughts are getting worse, and we're getting less and less, that seawater temperatures are rising higher than the worldwide average. It shows where we're heading and paints a picture of where we're headed and how we'll be affected by extreme climate events. It also gives us a strong message, which is that climate change in the last ice age were due to circumstances outside of our control. However, the current climate change was provoked by human activity, and we know what we need to do. It is in our hands. Solution is within our hands. Next, after the catastrophic flooding in the Valencian community of our country back in October, we know more than ever that we need to adapt flood-prone areas. Both, we have to act at the local, regional, and national levels. All of our riverbeds, the dams, and other infrastructure projects have deteriorated our soil, and we also see that Spanish rivers were changed from their original flows, and all of the errors that we have done in previous infrastructure projects have rendered floods even more dangerous to vulnerable areas, flood-prone areas. It also means that we have higher river flows, more sediment deposits, which leads to a higher probability of riverbed flooding. Water flows faster over cement, and we see that other measures can be taken to mitigate. But we could take measures to be able to reduce these dangers further downstream. So there are other ways to contribute to reducing the danger of flooding, and
This means that the water goes into the phreatic layer. That means that the volume and the speed can be reduced. Actions depend on a local context. It's very difficult to come up with valid responses for all situations, but a good practice would be to take full advantage of nature to make it work for us. In fact, nature-based solutions are one of the cross-cutting themes that are identified in the National Climate Change Adaptation Plan, and it is also integrated in public policy. One of the adaptation measures to deal with possible flooding are priority actions, changing the natural morphological routes of the water, ensuring that nature is used to help with the solution. It also would help with conservation of ecosystems, the quality of water, also the recharging of aquifers. The recommendation is to look at the cost-benefit analysis to decide on what priorities are attached to the actions. And under the heading of concrete measures, there is a recommendation for nature-based solutions and the importance of observation systems, early warning systems, communication systems, and information that needs to be conveyed in the case of disasters. Quite clearly, the municipal areas that are affected do have their own plans and do run their own awareness-raising campaigns in the areas that are prone to flooding. The ministry has, within its scope of competences, this job to make sure that the disasters from the past do not happen again. On the 28th of March, we also have started a consultation period looking at flooding. We want to lower risks of flooding to protect people and their properties. There are two approaches that are taken here in this consultation. Improve existing measures and bring in new measures. That will also mean that the permitted uses of the land in flood-prone areas will be reduced and make sure that we adapt the areas better to the risk. To conclude, there needs to be collaboration between different levels of public institutions to implement those protection measures against flooding and make sure that risk prevention campaigns are run for public employees and people who are working together in the civilian capacity in protection, because this will be a long-distance race. We need to ensure that we're dynamic, bringing in new solutions to the emerging risks, and always look at science as our basic diagnosis. Ladies and gentlemen, I would urge you, I would beg you, I would ask you, please, to stand firm beside science. This is a critical moment in time when the role of science is being questioned. It is being put into doubt. Its capability of responding to citizens' needs is being questioned. So science requires the express endorsement and backing of public authorities, and most especially the backing and endorsement of parliaments. So I would trust that the conclusions of this forum will say that. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you very much. I now am going to pass the floor to the chair of the Euro-Mediterranean Regional and Local Assembly Commission for Sustainable Development, Mr. Josko Kilisovic.
Good morning to everybody. I hope that you hear me. Good morning from Zagreb, capital city of Croatia, the country which is very much attached to Mediterranean basin. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed members of the Euro-Mediterranean Parliamentary Assembly, I'm honored to address you today on behalf of ARLEM, European Mediterranean Regional and Local Assembly, and to bring to this assembly the voice of our towns, cities, and regions. Those who are not only closest to citizens, but also at the front line of both crisis and opportunities in the climate fight. My contribution today will focus on the critical role of local authorities, cities, and regions in our collective efforts to adapt to and combat climate change in the Mediterranean. Our common mission is not only to address the immediate challenges posed by climate change. We heard from previous speakers some of them, but also to shape a sustainable and resilient future for the entire region. We are here not just to describe the challenges, we are here to demand ambition, to push for justice, and to build solidarity. Climate action in the Mediterranean must be rooted in equity, human rights, and a shared responsibility across all levels of governance. Local authorities are no longer just implementing partners. They are at the front line of climate action. With their democratic mandate and proximity to the people, they are best positioned to understand the unique needs and vulnerabilities of their communities, making them indispensable in developing and implementing effective climate resilience plans. Local authorities know the realities of climate injustice, the consequences of the floods, the droughts, the heat islands, and the human stories behind them. They are uniquely placed to build bottom-up climate resilience rooted in social cohesion and inclusiveness. Ireland has been unwavering in its commitment to promoting a just climate transition and mitigation in the Mediterranean. Our recommendations, adopted in recent years, highlight the pivotal role of local authorities in various sectors. For example, we called for treating water as a common good, not a commodity. Mediterranean cities and regions must lead on decentralized, equitable access to water, vital for climate adaptation and regional stability. Energy transition. Local authorities are key to accelerating renewable energy through partnerships, but we must go further with binding targets, inclusive financing, and the real fight against energy poverty. Agriculture and food safety, for example. We urge a shift towards climate-resilient agriculture and a return to the sustainable Mediterranean diet, supported by new agronomic strategies. We also highlighted the power of coastal and marine resources for sustainable growth, but stressed that our marine ecosystems are a shared heritage, not just an economic asset. These recommendations are a testament of Ireland's dedication to make climate change one of our top priorities. We also reflect Ireland's conviction that climate action is social action and that equity must be the compass of our response. Ireland's work extends beyond advocacy and reporting. It is a bridge between global ambition and local action. We are actively engaged in fostering cooperation among Mediterranean actors, both within the region and on the global stage. We collaborate with the Union for the Mediterranean to promote cooperation in international forums, such as COPs on climate and biodiversity. At COP29 in Baku, I proudly represented Ireland at the launch of the Mediterranean Pavilion, a long overdue step to highlight our region's shared challenges and strengths. This June, in the UN Ocean Conference will mark Mediterranean Day, spotlighting the role of local and regional authorities in protecting marine environment, ecosystems. Just yesterday, the Committee of Regions adopted its recommendations on the EU Ocean Pact. We will work to ensure the Mediterranean voice is heard, and that action follow words. We don't want to return to the status quo. We want a new Euro-Mediterranean partnership. And that's our common future: green, fair, youth-driven, and peace-oriented partnership. Ireland is working on a new report outlining territorial perspectives for a future strategic agenda, co-authored by Jordan and Italy. It will highlight shared but differentiated responsibilities and the central role of local authorities. Local governments can lead real change, from climate resilience plans and sustainable farming to renewables and waste reduction. With public-private partnerships and community action, we can turn ambition into impact. We must also address the growing impact of climate change on working conditions. While some countries, at least in Europe, have legal limits on working in extreme cold, similar protection for extreme heat are often lacking. And yet, heat waves will become more frequent and intense. This is a critical social and health issue that can't be overlooked. RMM fosters vital cooperation between local authorities across the Euro-Mediterranean region. As we shape a new strategic agenda, territorial voices must be at the table. Local action is key on climate, agriculture, food, and blue economy. Climate justice starts where people live and work. Let's empower regions and cities as co-leaders of a just transition and build a Mediterranean partnership rooted in dignity, solidarity, and sustainability. Ireland is ready. Our cities are ready. Now we need bold leadership from all of us. Thank you very much.
Merci.
Thank you. Let me give the floor now to the Managing Director of the European Institute of the Mediterranean, IMED, Mr. Roger Albiñana.
Muchísimas gracias.
Thank you very much, President. First of all, let me thank the Congress of Deputies and the Senate for hosting this event, this forum, and also to the Parliamentary Assembly of the UFM on behalf of the IMED. This is a European Institute of the Mediterranean that is attached to Spain's ministry, also to the Generalitat and the Barcelona City Hall. It's a great pleasure for me to speak to this Parliamentary Assembly.
Continue in English my intervention. First, I'd like to reiterate my gratitude for your invitation, which comes at a very decisive moment. Despite that the world is clearly in disarray, more than ever before, after what we saw yesterday, what happened yesterday, I believe that we cannot surrender. And climate action must continue guiding our political agendas. There is a risk of being distracted by what is going on in many hostile fronts at the moment, in foreign policy, in trade, in defense. And there is also a risk to consider climate change a problem for future generations and not for current ones. One problem that can actually wait, when the reality is that we need to act more decisively today than ever before. Believe me when I say that part of the progress that we have achieved in the green transition in the southern Mediterranean countries, in countries like Morocco, in countries like Egypt, in countries like Jordan and others, is also thanks to the leadership that the European Union has shown in that matter. Hence, it is imperative for the EU not to water down emission reduction regulations and green energy laws. Also, because the leadership exerted by the European Union in this field has had a very positive impact in the southern Mediterranean countries. I don't think that it is necessary to reckon the multifaceted impacts arising from climate change that the Mediterranean region is facing, from rising temperatures, extreme heat, water scarcity, droughts, floods, sea level rise, biodiversity loss, and all the cascading effects for our economies, our stability, both political and social. I think that MEDEC reports have signaled the region to be one of the world's most climate-impacted regions. We know the great efforts undertaken by countries like Morocco, Egypt and Jordan, for instance, in mitigation and adaptation measures. In terms of climate finance, both Morocco and Egypt have benefited from most funds targeting the southern Mediterranean countries that have been well invested in the renewable sector, notably in solar and wind projects. However, Data show that the situation is very uneven across the region, and more efforts need to be done to secure a coherent transition, with the need to secure less dependency on fossil fuels. Allow me to point out to three critical areas in which more could be done. First, we need a stronger regional cooperation in the fight against climate change in the Mediterranean, and in particular, regional climate governance. Let's be honest, not only the political and institutional landscape in the Mediterranean, particularly in the south, poses a challenge, but also the fragmented nature of regional cooperation. The Mediterranean is a region of significant political, economic, and cultural diversity, and coordinating climate action across borders has proven difficult. While the UFM, the Union for the Mediterranean, has made efforts to promote cooperative initiatives, the region's countries often pursue disparate climate agendas. And there are other policy frameworks apart from the UFM, such as the Barcelona Convention and its associated Mediterranean Action Plan and the Mediterranean Strategy for Sustainable Development. Moreover, at the global level, despite the Mediterranean is a coherent climatic and geographic region, it is not recognized as a unified regional entity in international climate negotiations at the level of the UNFCCC and the Convention of the Parties. This lack of political recognition limits opportunities for coordinated efforts and joint funding, leaving the Mediterranean countries divided into various negotiation groups. Second, to overcome these obstacles, these difficulties, there must be a concerted effort to scale up climate finance for the Mediterranean region. International funds, such as the Green Climate Fund and the Adaptation Fund, have provided valuable support. However, they have not been sufficient to meet the scale of the region's needs and ambitions. Access to climate finance is particularly critical for southern Mediterranean countries, which often lack the financial means to invest in large-scale climate projects. And very importantly, private sector investment must be mobilized along with public funding using innovative financing mechanisms such as green bonds and blended finance. And thirdly and last, one of the most effective ways to ensure long-term sustainability is through technology transfer and capacity building, as you all know. Therefore, building local capacities to manage and deploy these technologies is essential. Improving governance structures will enable countries to create and enforce climate policies more effectively. And resilience planning can be achieved by strengthening early warning mechanisms and disasters preparedness. We saw it in Valencia a few months ago. And in all of that, I believe, as the Parliamentary Assembly of the UFM, I think that you have a great say, and not only a great say, as my predecessors have already stated, you also have a great role. Climate change, therefore, remains the challenge of our century. It's the challenge of our generations. And we know that there will not be climate and green transition without a social transition. So my appeal to you, as the State Secretary said a few moments ago, is that we work together to achieve a more prosperous and green future. Thank you very much.
Merci.
Thank you. I'm going to give the floor now to the lister of speakers who've requested the floor, and I would ask you, please, to keep to your 3-minute time slot, each one of you. So, Mr. Angelo Ferrucci, Speaker of the Chamber of Representatives of Malta, has the floor first.
Thank you, Chair. Of course, we have this issue of climate change in the Mediterranean, and we know that the Mediterranean is warming 20% faster than the global average. This is a fact. Malta, my country, an island state, understand this very, very much. We have invested in renewable energy, established marine protection zones. We have implemented sustainable water management. We have issued a tender for offshore wind farming, demonstrating our commitment to diversify energy sources. Furthermore, we have also taken a pioneering step by becoming the first country to fully introduce a shore-to-ship power system, allowing vessels, that is, to shut down their engines while docked and connect to land-based electricity. This is a crucial move in reducing maritime emissions and setting precedent for the region in the Mediterranean. However, these efforts, of course, alone are not enough. We are not just facing what we call an environmental crisis, and it is a crisis. We are confronting a failure of global leadership. And this is the point. We have, of course, always led to the discussion. I remember, I go back in history at the United Nations, 1988. Malta was the first country at the time to request the inclusion of the conservation of climate as part of the common heritage of mankind during the agenda of the 43rd session of the United Nations General Assembly. And of course, this initiative led to a dedicated plenary on October 1988, where there was the resolution 4353, which recognized that climate change is a global concern requiring urgent action. This was in 1988, 89. Imagine how even urgent it is today. In any case, beyond Europe and the developed nations, we are seeing the United States to China. They speak of green transitions while still driving oil-dependent economies. We don't have to elaborate with this. We know what's happening in America and President Trump and all that. Billions in climate finance are promised, yet we know that developing Mediterranean countries remain underfunded and are vulnerable. We must call it what we call, well, let's put it that way. This is all hypocrisy. We must acknowledge the complexity of this transition. The shift to electric vehicles, for example, depends on the energy that powers them. We know also that the scientific evidence is undeniable. A 2023 study published in the Nature Medicine and reported by the Associated Press found that Malta is among the most vulnerable nations in Europe to extreme heat-related deaths, with projections of 269 temperature-related deaths per 1,000 population by the end of the century. And I ask, we asked this together, we are in the Mediterranean. If we do not act now, when are we going to act? If this is not a wake-up call, then what it is? I mean, I recall Sir David Attenborough warned that during the 2018 United Nations Climate Change Conference, where he made it very clear that the collapse of our civilizations and the extinctions of much of the natural world is on the horizon. This is the clear statement of Sir David Attenborough. And so I recollect everything in what I have to say. What must be done? Mandatory accountability, for sure. Legally binding carbon reduction targets for all the Mediterranean states. A Mediterranean climate fund, that we have to have a collective, genuine financial commitments for adaptation, mitigation, and green innovation. A renewable energy revolution, that is a diverse energy mix, including expanding solar, wind, and a serious commitment to exploring a hydrogen-based system, sustainable maritime solutions, water and food security strategies, and please, we have to stop saying and doing excuses. We have to act. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Speaker. Je passe la parole.
Let me give the floor to the head of the delegation of the Italian Senate, chairperson of the Committee on Women's Rights in the Euro-Mediterranean countries of the Parliamentary Assembly for the Union for the Mediterranean. Mrs. Simona Petrucci has the floor.
Buongiorno a tutti, grazie.
Good morning. Thank you very much, President. Dear colleagues, if a temperate climate has for centuries enabled Mediterranean civilizations to flourish, we cannot be silent on the fact that today, because of climate change, our region, the region of the Mediterranean, is growing warmer 20% faster than the rest of the world. We have heard it from the United Nations. When we talk about climate change, we are no longer talking about an emergency, but it's a trend. It's a consolidated trend which we can measure. It is not an extraordinary phenomenon. It is a new reality which we all need to face and live with. And member states have to consider this when they undertake decisions on policies, be they economic, environmental, or of other kinds. This means we have to react and we have to program, we have to think ahead. We can't just try to do what we can with a crisis. We have to find a way to adapt and to mitigate, and we have to look at the effects on the long term of these impacts. We have to be pragmatic, we have to not be ideological, we have to protect nature, and we have to put people in the center of our action. We have to defend nature without compromising on economic and social development, and we have to follow a clear idea, a clear path: technological neutrality. This takes inspiration from the idea that the state should not impose a technology upon others, but should rather create the condition for an open market which is competitive, where innovation and efficient solutions determine which technologies should be adopted and should be used in our territories. We have to respond to this common challenge, and therefore we need to multiply cooperation opportunities between the north and the south of the Mediterranean. We know the Mediterranean is a place of extraordinary opportunity, and we know we have natural resources and good social and economic conditions and knowledge which would enable us to carry out sustainable development strategies. We have to, therefore, work together with our resources and our knowledge. This means we shouldn't be in competition with each other, and we should be enabled to work together as peers, working towards peace as well at the same time. Cooperation means strengthening adaptation policies. It means managing coastal zones, working for desalination plants. And this is for all the areas around the Mediterranean which have a dire lack of water. We have seen whole regions around the Mediterranean devastated by drought these last few years. And these changes have an impact on water provisions. We all have to have access to water. We know this is a fundamental condition to limit reasons of conflict and also to enable peace to be lasting. I would like to conclude by talking to a plan we have in Italy, the Mattei plan, which thinks of parliamentary cooperation as a plan to foster development. The Mattei plan sees a connection between climate, energy, and sustainable development. And my country is working very hard with determination to try to follow this strategy, which should lead us to peace and to development, which leads to cooperation amongst all states. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you. And now I'm going to pass the floor to the head of the delegation of the Grand Assembly of Turkey, Mr. Mustafa Hulki Çevikoglu.
Thank you very much, distinguished chair, dear participants, my esteemed colleagues. Mediterranean is one of the most vulnerable regions to climate change and warming 20% faster than the global average. Well, this results in countries facing increasingly frequent extreme weather events, and rising temperatures and heat waves increase health risks, reduce agricultural productivity, and raise energy demand. Water scarcity and desertification threaten the food security and the livelihoods of more than 180 million people. Additionally, rising sea levels and coastal erosion put major cities and infrastructure and tourism-dependent economies at risk. In order to overcome these challenges, urgent and coordinated regional actions are needed. The Union for Mediterranean and its Parliamentary Assembly provide a critical platform for climate diplomacy and joint policy making. So the parliamentarians play a crucial role in shaping ambitious policies, securing climate finance, and strengthening regional solidarity. Turkey, our country, is taking transformative steps across all sectors in line with its 2053 net zero emissions target and green transformation vision. The climate law was recently presented to the Grand National Assembly of Turkey and is expected to be enacted and ratified soon. With this law in question being enacted, the national emission trading system will enter its pilot phase and it will be fully implemented as of 2026. Additionally, the national green taxonomy will be completed by the end of 2025. Ahead of COP29, two-year transparency report and our long-term climate strategy have been announced. And work continues on our new nationally determined contribution, which will be presented with the highest ambition before COP30. Our 2024-2030 climate change mitigation and adaptation strategy and action plans are also being implemented. So, Turkey's candidacy to host COP31 in 2026 reflects our strong commitment to multilateralism and our determination to bring together different voices for effective climate solutions. The Zero Waste Initiative, launched by First Lady Emine Erdoğan, has become a global environmental sustainability model. This initiative in question has prevented 5.9 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions to date, demonstrating Turkey's leadership in the fight against climate change. Through all these efforts, we are committed to building a resilient, sustainable, and climate-conscious future. Turkey will continue to move forward with strength in the fight against climate change. Last but not least, I would like to make this comment so that it is being noted. We would like to share a reservation in our Granada Declaration. The reservation of Turkey is as follows, and we request this reservation to be added to the final declaration. So, organized in Granada between 2nd to 4th of April 2025, the Republic of Turkey can confirm Granada Declaration. However, this doesn't mean that Turkey recognizes the Greek Cypriot administration to be the sole representative of the Cyprus Republic, and this doesn't show that Turkey has the responsibility of making an agreement with the Greek Cypriot administration whatsoever. Thank you.
Merci.
Thank you, Speaker. I know I'm going to pass the floor to the head of the delegation of the People's National Assembly of Algeria, Mr. Nasser Batish.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم السيدات
In the name of Allah, the Almighty and the Merciful, I would first like to express my sincere thanks to this August Assembly for this forum for organizing this event on such an important topic that affects us all. Given the human tragedy that is unfurling before our very eyes, Gaza exemplifies resilience and resistance in face of intransigent Israeli aggression that makes no distinction between destroying women, lives of women and children, and infrastructure. and that has been hitting hard population for the last 15 years. And the Palestinian people have endured chronic suffering. And so we witness as witnesses to this violence. We cannot stand behind and say nothing against an innocent Palestinian people. We are living in a time of in which we see a lot of tragedy and climate destruction that is tangible and affects us at all levels, whether it's political, social, or economic. All scientific indicators point to the reality of the fact that climate change is affecting us, and there is no doubt that global warming and unfettered temperature increases are creating all of these destructive national disasters, whether they're typhoons, hurricanes, floods, or elsewhere. We've even seen this in Algeria, where we have seen a lot of forest fires that have caused significant material and human damage. We need to adopt a paradigm of mitigation and resilience along with this change. In Algeria, we have created a national instrument or tool to fight against climate change, Agenda 2020. From 2020 to 2030, we aim to reduce CO2 emissions and fight against temperature increases. We have created different financing tools to pay for this in real terms. We also have a renewable energy plan that hopefully by 2030 we will be able to have more than 100,000 megawatts of energy from solar energy, which is abundant in our region. In Algeria, we place great importance on proper water management, for instance, desalination plants that counter the effects of drought. And we also try to fight against desertification and try to find a better balance between dealing with the climate. There is a huge project that endeavors to preserve biodiversity. Our biodiversity, we want to create a natural preserve that's more than 100,000 hectares. We also had 4.7 million hectares that have been earmarked to fight against desertification and hope to preserve biodiversity. These measures are taken at the parliamentary level and have been adopted, and we've also adopted current measures. Ladies and gentlemen, Algeria is aware that the climate challenges are a real, tangible, and palpable threat to us all, and we need to think outside the box and find different innovative tools, whether they're technological or financial, to try to better meet the objectives we've reached. That is why Algeria agrees that there is a definite need for us to cooperate at the Mediterranean level here, at the regional level here in the Mediterranean, and also to fight against forest fires and other natural disasters. We do this through different early warning measures to fight against forest fires, and also better quantify scientific data in the most effective and efficient manner possible. Algeria also adheres to the principle of international solidarity and cooperation. We do this thanks to the initiative of our esteemed president, which is to create an African fund to fight against climate change at the African level in Africa, with the aim of mitigating aggressive natural disasters that affect us all. And finally, Algeria exhorts, begs, and implores all stakeholders, whether at the Mediterranean regional level or international level, to come up with, to punish or to sanction nations that are heavy polluters or but don't play the role that the essential role that they need to play in. We have to come up with measures of adaptation and mitigation and exhort all countries, especially heavy polluters, to meet their responsibilities and adopt properly adapted climate measures. I also would be remiss in not saying that global warming is not just a climate challenge, but also a political, economic, social challenge and it is incumbent upon all of us to act at the local, national, regional, and international levels to come up with solutions to these problems. The Mediterranean has been a crossroads for different cultures for millennia, and we have a historic and fundamental responsibility to meet this era's challenge. Our challenge is not a temporary issue. It's something that is very severe, and we need to meet the challenge in order to guarantee the future for our future generations. Now I give the floor to the Mediterranean Youth Representative of the, from Spain. Thank you very much, and thank you for coming to Spain for this important meeting.
Climate change is unquestionably one of the biggest challenges that we are facing today. It knows no borders. It is a challenge that affects all of us. It doesn't care about what nationality we have, what age we have, or what our social status is. This isn't a question for discussion or speculation. It's a scientific fact that is endorsed by decades of scientific data and research. And it's not just an environment problem, it's economic and social. Mitigation measures are important, but adaptation measures are also important. We have to understand what the reality is and come up with measures to attenuate that, but we still have to live with the situation. In Europe, we had to wait for the Draghi report and the pressure of some countries to understand something that's very straightforward. You can't design an agenda without including people and without taking into account productivity and consequently well-being and welfare. You can't combat climate change without listening to the people who are working on the land, people who are living by work at sea, and people who are working in cities. Sustainability is an unavoidable commitment, that's true, but it also needs to go hand in hand with competitiveness. As with everything in life, we have to seek and find the right balance. We have to protect our planet, but also protect ourselves, our companies, and the economy. And yes, it is possible to do that. The transition to a low-carbon economy doesn't necessarily have to have a negative impact on our companies. Quite the opposite. It could be an opportunity for them to innovate and create jobs. It could be an opportunity for our businesses to be leading the way forward in the economy of the future. As you've heard, the effects of climate change in the Mediterranean area are particularly severe. Because of the geographical and climate vulnerability we suffer, we have a unique biodiversity here. We have a rich system, thousands and thousands of species and plant species are here for this. Water scarcity is one of our biggest concerns. We have this tendency towards a drought, and climate change is making things worse. Rainfall is less frequent, it's more erratic, and we are seeing there's much more pressure on water now. Forest fires is another problem. Over recent years, we have witnessed devastating fires that have wiped out hectares of forest lands and destroyed the lives of many people. Colleagues, we have to take measures. We have to look after our environment and also protect it. It's unique, but also we have to understand that the responsibility for fighting climate change is a shared one, and our commitment could not be just a one-region commitment. It wouldn't help us at all. We have to act together and united, all of us together, and with the private sector and with the whole world. Europe is aware of the challenge that it is facing, and this forum could be an opportunity for all countries to become aware of the reality. But honestly, I don't think that is enough. The challenges that we're facing in this sphere in the Mediterranean are global challenges. We can't deal with them on our own. Action needs to be taken by all continents together. And of course, I'm including the major powers such as China and the US in that statement. We cannot guarantee a more sustainable future without the help of everybody. Thank you very much.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you very much. Let me give the floor to the Mediterranean Youth representative of the Anna Lindh Foundation, Mrs. Mena Mosbah.
Honorable President, distinguished speakers and head of delegations, it is a privilege to contribute to today's vital discussion as a beneficiary of Anna Lindh Mediterranean Youth in Action program from Egypt, and also as a gender and social inclusion specialist in climate action. The Mediterranean is not just a geographical space, but a living mosaic of cultures, identities, and generations. It represents a paradox. While it is a cradle of civilization and biodiversity, it is now on the front lines of rising temperatures and sea levels. The region is warming 20% faster than the global average, where women and girls face heightened risks during climate disasters due to existing gender inequalities, including limited mobilities and economic dependence, while youth are among the most affected by climate-induced unemployment. These figures and numbers increase at high rates in conflict zones. The carbon emissions from the first 120 days of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict exceeded annual emissions of 26 individual countries, which requires our holistic approach in addressing climate adaptation and mitigation synergies. Acidification threatens our blue economy, while desertification and changing in perception patterns endanger our green economy. However, within these challenges lie transformative opportunities. First and foremost, women and youth are powerful agents of a change. When included in decision-making, climate adaptation policies are 35% more effective. Second, by fostering investment in application of inclusive climate-smart technologies like integrated agriculture, aquaculture systems, and promoting renewable energy solutions for local communities, thus we simultaneously address food security, energy transition, waste management, and over time, this will lead into reduction of the chances of rising disputes over shared environmental resources. We need to consider a paradigm for our region that takes into consideration an intersectional approach to ensure that our climate policies engage youth meaningfully, integrate gender-responsive measures, and mostly important, recognizing women's unique vulnerabilities and strengths in climate action. There is also a pressing need to strengthen civil society role and cooperation by fostering both intercultural and intergenerational dialogues. Coming to an end, I would like to thank you and Anna Lindh for your commitment in ensuring voices of youth like me today are being heard in high-level discussions. Believing that our voices, when amplified, this is not only reflect an act of inclusion, but a key to sustainable and equitable solutions for the Mediterranean's future. And in closing, I am quoting from His Majesty, King of Spain, opening remarks from yesterday: with an eye on the future, we need to focus on young people. Thank you.
Merci, Madame.
Thank you, Madam. Let me give the floor now to Mr. Georgios Georgantes, Deputy Speaker of the Hellenic Parliament. He'll be speaking online.
À vous la parole.
Dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, it is very important that today's work of the forum starts with the issue of climate change and its impacts in the Mediterranean region. It is important because this issue has now acquired existential characteristics for the future of the region. Climate change is one of the greatest challenges of the 21st century. It is a dynamic phenomenon that is constantly evolving and affects every corner of the planet in different ways. The Mediterranean is one of the most vulnerable regions to the effects of climate change precisely because of its characteristics, such as high population density, dependence on tourism, and agricultural production. In the midst of these challenges, therefore, cooperation and the development of sustainable strategies for adaptation and mitigation of climate change are crucial for the future of the region. Greece attaches particular importance to the logic of multilateral cooperation to address the common challenges posed. This is evidenced first and foremost by Greece's current term as a non-permanent member of the UN Security Council for the period 2025-2026, where Greece has set as its main priority the link between climate, peace and security. Moreover, Greece, as a founding member of the Barcelona Convention for the Protection of the Mediterranean and as a member of the Union for the Mediterranean, is actively involved in the effort for the protection and sustainable development of the Mediterranean, promoting regional cooperation. It is reminded here that during the 8th summit of the Mediterranean member states of the European Union, UMED9, held in Athens on the 17th of September 2021, 9 EU member states adopted the Greek initiative, the Athens Declaration on Climate Change and the Environment in the Mediterranean, which includes, among others, commitments and actions to address climate change and protect the biodiversity of the Mediterranean. Our country, however, in addition to its initiatives and actions at international and regional level, actively supports the European Union's climate diplomacy and its ambitious binding targets. These targets have moreover been adopted as national targets by national legislation, which provides for a reduction of greenhouse gas emissions by at least 55% by 2030, 80% by 2040, and ultimately achievement of climate neutrality by 2050. The country's priorities also include becoming a regional Greek energy hub and promoting new technologies such as green hydrogen and offshore wind energy. Further, Greece, also recognizing that the green transition can be a driver for economic growth, job creation and sustainable development for local communities, has launched the national initiative GR Eco Islands, an initiative that aims to transform Greek islands such as Chalki, Astipalea and Tilos into models of energy self-sufficiency, circular economy for water and waste, and eco-mobility. However, despite all the efforts made to tackle climate change, we are already beginning to experience its devastating consequences. In particular, series of extreme climate events have occurred, fires and floods, with which the country has been confronted and have made the need to adapt and strengthen resilience to climate change a key horizontal priority for Greece through the implementation of the Aegis program, which aims precisely at improving prevention, preparedness and response to crisis situations. Further, I would like to make a synthesis of all the topics by referring to the climate change and its impact on migration. Greece is called upon, because it is on the first line, to manage increased migration flows that come mainly from the Middle East and North Africa, pushed away due to drought mainly. In these new conditions and the armoring of the borders and the management of these flows is the key to the maintenance of social cohesion. Climate change is a challenge in itself and entails other challenges that we need to take into consideration if we want to holistically tackle this phenomenon. Ladies and gentlemen, the scientific predictions on the impact of climate change in the Mediterranean are unfortunately alarming. And while climate commitments and actions taken so far may seem ambitious, there is still a lot more to be done in order to radically tackle the phenomenon. It is primarily up to us as participants in the forum to exchange views on best practices for managing the problem, take them back to our respective parliaments, and push for more decisive policies and immediate action. Our duty is to act now before it is too late and to spread the message of climate urgency to every level of society. We owe it to the environment we live in and to the generations to come. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. Le dernier intervenant.
The last speaker is the honourable delegate from Algeria.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين.
In the name of compassionate and merciful God, good morning to all of you, Excellencies. As peoples here represented in this highly significant forum for the future of the Mediterranean, organized by the UFM, I'd like to make a very short, concise intervention, hopefully adding to what has been said already about climate change and the pressing need for adaptability and tangible, lasting solutions to this global challenge affecting not just the Mediterranean area, but the whole world. I'd like to mention the historical dimension of this challenge, the reasons behind climate change, which have caused disastrous consequences all over the world, in the 4 points of the world. Let me give you some example. In Algeria, we have serious environmental degradation as a consequence of the French colonization of the country back then. France really meant the colonization meant that this was almost a sentence for us of constant destruction. There is still waste from that time of colonization in our country that are destroying Algeria from inside. If you think about humanitarian responsibility and liability, I think there is a historical liability that needs to be accepted by some countries and how they've caused this damage on the southern shores of the Mediterranean. Second point, when we talk about the energy transition or about achieving that energy paradigm shift and giving up on fossil fuels such as oil and gas. We need to be very responsible here, and we need to think about humanitarian justice and fairness. The southern Mediterranean countries, including the countries in the Sahel, are countries that are still developing countries, and the economies that they have are built on the foundations of energy, and they can't just simply give up on their own energy paradigm overnight. Suddenly, we have to think about phasing in of policies progressively to be able to address this progressive change and shift in the paradigm of traditional energy sources. Otherwise, there will be an economic storm that will hit these countries, including Algeria. Algeria has taken very significant steps forward in this area. Let me give you one example. Algeria has converted one of the main landfills in our urban areas into a park, a green area. I think there are a few countries that have done that. When we talk about international responsibility and liability, what about the output of COP29 in Baku? These consequences were addressed. Rich countries need to invest $300 billion to be able to offset those paradigm changes. Not all countries have done this. More financing needs to be earmarked for those countries that are suffering more from climate change, but are not the countries that are causing that climate change. That is one of the goals of this real, tangible progress that we need to see. Because at the end of the day, we need to understand that we have to strike a balance, find justice and fairness. There is a certain responsibility on the part of those countries that are causing environmental damage, that have caused it and are causing that damage. We need to adopt effective mechanisms that will allow us to build the necessary public infrastructure. A lot of developing countries, and we see this, cannot undertake that transition. They don't have enough resources, either energy resources or financial resources. This is a global challenge that puts all countries under the obligation to provide resources for developing countries. It shouldn't be a burden for developing countries at all. They are not to blame. We should also talk about the negative impact of the Israelis' intransigence, its barbaric actions against the innocent population there. Israel also plays an important role in the conflict and in the degradation of the environment and the climate there in the Palestinian area. Climate change, is it everyone's responsibility or just a Mediterranean responsibility? It's international. I think we have to deal with honestly. Even though we are not to blame for the emissions, we have more of a burden, more responsibility to address them. We need to remember that challenge and urge all parties to take on their own responsibility internationally. Thank you very much for listening. Let me move on to the last. Oh, that was actually the last intervention, I believe, on a list of speakers for the third session. I think we can move on to session 4. Madam Vice President of the European Parliament, Mrs. Pina Pizzerno, will be moderating this new session 4. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellencies, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this last thematic panel of this forum. We have had opportunities to meet these days. I am Pina Pizzerno. I am Vice President of the European Parliament. The forum has addressed many key aspects of Euro-Mediterranean cooperation, giving us the opportunity to discuss all the urgent challenges that our region is having to face and enabling us to seize the numerous opportunities that follow. Among these, youth employment and gender equality, which, together with all the other challenges discussed in the previous sessions, are essential to ensure a sustainable and inclusive future, a future that is a future we all aspire to for the Mediterranean. Let me now introduce our keynote speakers. The Secretary of State for Social Economy, Mrs. Amparo Medina Segovia, and Mrs. Maria Elena de Felipe Letonen, member of the European Economic and Social Committee and rapporteur for the opinion on the involvement of young people in social and civil dialogue in the Mediterranean region. Also, Mrs. Ana Dorangriquia, Program Manager at the Social and Civil Affairs Division of the Union for the Mediterranean. Before I leave the floor to our guests and our main speakers, I would like to just make a few very brief remarks. To provide sustainable and integrated responses to the needs of women and young people in our region, we need to make this a priority of public policies. Both face specific challenges in accessing the labor market and also in maintaining employment, as well as in developing their employability. So recognizing these specificities is paramount if we want to focus together on forward-looking policies. The Mediterranean region has one of the youngest populations in the world. In particular, of course, this is true for the countries of our southern shore. And the lack of job opportunities, as you know, pushes many skilled young people to migrate towards more competitive markets. Therefore, investing in reducing the gap between the qualifications and the educated level of these young people and the labor market can contribute and help to tackle brain drain and foster innovation and entrepreneurship and promote regional economic development for the whole of the Mediterranean region. As you know, I am a woman and I am very engaged in politics, and gender equality is a topic that I consider central to the future of our societies. I also believe that this is a fundamental issue for the European Parliament, which I here represent. The European Parliament has passed important legislation to help close the gender pay gap, which unfortunately is a reality which we all know and which is despicable. You know that when they are educated the same way and they do the same work, women are paid less than men. So there is a huge pay gap, and this is absolutely unacceptable today. We also have to combat discrimination, and we have to forge a way for more women to enter leadership roles. This year, Parliament, as every year, has hosted a Gender Equality Week, which is a week in which we celebrate progress and in which we have worked hard over the years to try to foster certain initiatives and improve the situation. This is an initiative, and this is my proposal here, which might be followed by other countries around the Mediterranean, so others could take it up. I am sure that the interventions of all our speakers and our guests will enrich our discussion and debate and help us to take concrete steps towards a more inclusive and prosperous Mediterranean. So let us start right away with our speakers. We would like to give Mrs. Segovia, Secretary of State for the Social Economy, the floor, please. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker, Speaker of the House of Deputies, speakers, deputy speakers of parliaments, ambassadors. Granada was a land where people lived together, and there was a meeting of cultures and allowed people to live together for more than 1,000 years. And the Mediterranean has always been a sea where people come together and encounter each other, where many dreams and cultures live. And so I would allow to address you to welcome to this everyone who represents countries from Egypt to Morocco and the European Parliament, all areas where the crux of democracy was born. Spain has always played an active role in the Mediterranean in different European Union policies. Since 1995, we have bet on the Barcelona process, and today, 30 years on, we support the Union for the Mediterranean. And that is why we feel that it is a significant feat to see to focus on the Mediterranean, and also we support the Pact for the Mediterranean. Countries on both sides of the sea are together going towards shared prosperity that will lead to peace and social development based on sustainable economies, inclusive economies, and interconnected economies. It is also a commitment from the Ministry of Work and Social Economy in Spain to play a key role in the regional job platform and to also follow best practices and follow what the foundation that was led in Marrakesh in 2022. In Marrakesh, we decided to focus on empowerment of women and young people, especially through decent work. And in doing so, that would allow us to meet the shared challenges our countries face. Also in Marrakesh, we recognized that the role of a social economy is a model of resilience and a vector for quality job creation. And that is why we are pleased to see that the Economic and Social Committee of the European Community approved measures to include young people in social and civil dialogue in the Mediterranean region. And in this very interesting initiative, it sends a clear and strong message that social dialogue is a cornerstone of democratic participation. We must promote the inclusion of young people more. But given the economic realities that they face, significant unemployment, unstable job market, and other job market challenges, they are all a significant obstacle or hindrance to full participation. And that is why we must undertake labor market reforms that hit at the core of the problem, because we should not lie to ourselves. Decent work is essential to democracy. It's one of the conditions of decent life, and upon which open, involved, and participatory societies are built. And that is what the government of Spain has been doing since 2020. We have tried to give back dignity to people who work in the job market, to set the path for decent work as an essential element to economic tissue, and to recover from the damages done by the COVID pandemic. And we have also complied, our measures have complied with the Social Democratic Charter. And we have tried to, managed to reduce temporary jobs and increase salaries, which is the best results we've ever had. Full employment is the best economic motor and allows for equality, shared prosperity that is recommended by the World Bank. And at the same time, we have reduced inequality and poverty. We have endeavored to favor advantages for those who need it the most. And these measures have most benefited women and children, and we have reduced the gender gap and the youth gap. All of these are a fruit of the social dialogue undertaken with the participation of unions and also tripartite negotiations. In the Mediterranean, we have tried to have an integrated approach, as the Spanish presidency of the forum has discussed. Migrants are not a problem. They're not a scourge. They're not a weight. Any human trafficking is illegal. Immigration should be an option and a free decision, one that brings people together and that should not be affected by inequality. And that is why it is important to provide quality, decent work so that we can guarantee that all people, without exception, can can live independently and have a decent life. To conclude, I would like to applaud the decisions made by this forum focusing on peace, stability, security, dialogue, and respect of international law, also recognizing that Palestine and a two-state solution should be a pillar upon which we build prosperity for everyone in the Mediterranean. The Union for the Mediterranean and Parliamentary Assembly should play a key role in this aim. The Mediterranean is a sea that brings people together. We should live in peace, justice, and mutual prosperity. Thank you very much.
Grazie. Grazie davvero per le tante suggestioni tutte interessanti.
Thank you for the numerous and very interesting suggestions you made in your speech. Now I would like to give the floor to Mrs. Felipe Letonen. Please, you have the floor.
Pues muchísimas.
Thank you very much, Deputy Speaker of the Parliament, Chair of the Congress, and Mediterranean representatives. It is a pleasure for me to be here with you today to explain what we've been working on in the European Social Group. The Secretary of State mentioned that when we talk about social dialogue and civil dialogue in the Mediterranean region and focusing on youth, I think is very, very important for the future, for the near future. I would like to thank the representatives of the Anna Lindh Foundation and other participatory organizations, as well as the Union for the Mediterranean, to make our work easier, both for young people who participated, as well as the experts that the Union for the Mediterranean put us in contact with, because it really made our job much easier. It's obvious that young people, the youth, should be involved in political decision-making and socially as well. But beyond the fact that if they're not involved at the root of these problems, they're not going to participate at all. And it's important that they work because many civil society organizations, workers' organizations, have problems participating in an effective manner in creating policies at the national level. Unfortunately, many countries in the Mediterranean do not involve them. I would say that for the youth to be involved, they need to be there at the root when the decisions are made, and that's the most important thing for us. There is another point that I should underscore, which is promoting the sustainable implementation of the conditions of the International Labour Organization in countries of the Middle East and North Africa. And there is a very important program that we've talked about. Our European Commissioner for the Mediterranean talked about the Solid program, which we would love to have a third phase to it, in which we could really continue social dialogue. And it is a very important project, and I think a third phase would really make it easier to continue integrating young people in social dialogue. The economic situation and the situation of young people in the Mediterranean region should be mentioned. They have a lot of unemployment. They have low-paying, unstable jobs, and a disproportionate amount of young people have a difficult light, which makes their hopes and dreams and their possibilities to integrate society of their countries more difficult. And that is why we recommend, one of the recommendations we make is that we should make sure that young people are involved in collective negotiations. If we have young people involved in this and in Mediterranean-wide policies, they should be able to have decision-making, a right to vote and a right to have their say. I would like to thank you for your attention. We feel that young people are the future, and so their active participation in all of our discussions in civil society and business world and policies, politics and unions is something that could really help us lead to a prosperous future in the region. Thank you.
Grazie molte.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your speech. And now I give the floor to Mrs. Anna Dorangricchia.
I'm going to switch to English. Thank you very much for inviting us as Union for Mediterranean to intervene in this session. A pleasure and a privilege to be here and to listen all the representatives of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Union for Mediterranean for their commitment on youth employment and gender equality. I'm going to just present a few actions, initiatives that the Union for Mediterranean has been undertaking in the last years to facilitate youth engagement and gender equality from different perspectives, which are also related to the main topics of the declaration of this assembly, of this forum. First of all, we were discussing before, and thank you to Mena for mentioning it, from the Anna Lindh Foundation, about the specific challenges that youth and women face when we are talking about social and economic inclusion, but also when we talk about climate risk and leadership. In these main areas, the Union for Mediterranean has been working from different entry points. In terms of employment, we know the highest rate of youth unemployment in the region, and specifically in the case of young women. We know that from one side, we have the mismatching between the skills and capacities, and from the other side, the presence in the labor market. Just to mention a few data, an average between 50 and 60% of engineering graduates in the MENA region are women. But then when we look at the labor market in science and engineering, we found out that we have less than 20%. So something is missed between the education system, the vocational education training system, and the labor market. In this sense, the cooperation between academia and private sectors and public sector is fundamental. This is why the Union for Mediterranean has been investing in the last years in providing training and capacity buildings to both the academia, vocational educational training center, and private sector employment employment providers to be sure that this mismatch is tackled. This is part of the last Ministerial Declaration on Labour Employment. It will be a key focus in the next one that will be adopted in October 2025, and the conference will take place in Malta. Thank you to Malta for hosting it. In the framework of the initiative of the Union for Mediterranean, there is a specific focus when we talk about youth and gender employment on digital and green transitions. Digital transition means access to technology, means knowledge, means skills, means training. This is why the Union for Mediterranean, and this is applicable also for the green transition. This is why the Union for Mediterranean has launched 3 editions of a grant scheme to support civil society organizations working to create decent jobs, to create capacity skills to be part of the green transitions. We have funded about 10 projects in the region. We are going to finance a new set of projects focused on digital inclusive commerce and trade. From the other side, the Union for Mediterranean is working specifically on women empowerment in terms of economic empowerment. We have launched a recent contest to support women entrepreneurs in the region in collaboration with the Union of Novara Banks. Is open until end of April, and we want to promote those women and those initiatives who are supporting financial inclusion of other women in the region. We are going to launch on Monday a new award for women in artificial intelligence to support those women who have been developing innovative solutions through artificial intelligence for social impact and green transition. We have created a community of practices for women working on green and blue economy, and we are advocating for more gender-sensitive environmental and climate policies. And referring to what has been discussed in the previous session on climate, I think that the nexus between climate and women, peace and security is a new challenge that should be tackled by all the actors in the region. This is why the Union for Mediterranean, in cooperation with the European Institute of Mediterranean, has launched a regional network on this specific nexus. And we are going to organize a regional stakeholder conference in Amman in November, where we are going to also provide capacity building to those women-led organizations working for women, peace and security. Why? Because we consider that from one side, gender should be included as key objective in the National Action Plan for Climate, and from the other side, the climate perspective should be included in the priorities in terms of prevention and response for women, peace and security agenda. Last point I want to mention is about the need of disaggregated data. All policies being youth and gender sensitive to be outlined need to be evidence-based. For this, we need more data, disaggregated by gender, by age, by status in terms of disability, migration, refugees, taking into account the specific context of our region. This is why the Union for Mediterranean has set gender monitoring mechanism. The first report was published in 2022. We are going to launch a new edition to be presented by this year. I wanted to just recall that this year is an important year for the world, for the region, for 2 main reasons. One, because we celebrate the 30th anniversary of the Beijing Declaration on Women's Rights, and the United Nations Women has recently adopted a new declaration 2 weeks ago in New York, reaffirming the need to fight against any backlash on women's rights. And the second reason is because we are celebrating the 25th anniversary of the United Nations Resolution 1325 on Women, Peace and Security Agenda. And these topics are fundamental for our region. Thank you very much for your attention.
Grazie, grazie, un intervento davvero ricco.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. This was a very interesting speech, and I found many interesting points, in particular when you talked about data and you said how many women there are who have STEM studies, and they have many more of them on the southern shore of the Mediterranean than we have in the north. Many more women who have degrees in sciences and STEM. Now, with pleasure, I would like to give the floor to the Speaker of the Chamber of Representatives of Morocco, Mr. Talib El Alami. No, he does not want to speak, so I shall give the floor to the Speaker of the Chamber of Representatives of Malta, Mr. Farrugia. You have the floor.
Well, I want to thank Ms. Hanna for mentioning our country. Of course, we look forward for that conference, and this is a very important conference, as you well stated. And to add to that, if we really want to talk about seriously about peace, stability, and future prosperity in the Mediterranean, we must start with our young people and with women. It is their future. And in fact, this is not a question of a side issue. It is a central issue. And yet, youth unemployment across our region remains among the highest, unfortunately, globally. Women, especially, we know, and young women, especially, continue to face barriers all the time to entry, limited support for entrepreneurship, or being underrepresented in leadership. And this is clearly visible both in public and also in private sectors. But allow me, once we're mentioning my country, allow me to speak about some hope and conviction grounded in our experience. In recent years, Malta made major strides with regards to female labor participation, thanks to particular policies. We introduced free childcare, make it possible for all women to rejoin and enter the workforce. We introduced tax incentives, where we encourage businesses to support female leadership. We focus on youth-focused schemes such as Job Plus and work studies pathways throughout education system, having directly linked young people with employment, especially in technology, high-tech, finance, and the green economy. Those were the three major steps that we introduced. Of course, much more needs to be done. But I want to underline that the region cannot solve the problems, these issues, in isolation. It's impossible. We must share data, ideas, and we must share results. And if we do not understand the real needs, we cannot create real solutions. So I suggest in this conference, and I suggest because we spoke in Malta about what we did and how we can organize a forum, not a forum, an observatory. So I suggest a Mediterranean Youth and Gender Observatory. The aim of this observatory, or platform, call it what you want, is where we share together employment, employment trends, skill gaps. We discuss or share gender-based barriers. And also we talk about and we share success stories. I mean, Malta unemployment is 0. I mean, this is a result of these. So not just reports. I mean, every one of us can do reports and can say something about it. That's important. But that can be only shelved. We need to do more. We need to find and feed politics. We need to feed partnership, and we need to feed the progress. So youth across the Mediterranean are not short on talent, of course, and definitely women across the region are not lacking in capability, and we know that. But they lack to access and opportunity. So we must do and work on sharing. So let's work together, and I conclude. Let's work together across governments, parliaments, to ensure that where someone is born, he should not be discriminated, especially women, especially young people. The future of the Mediterranean is not in summits, which is important, but it is in the setup of how we deal with the problem in schools, startups, equal spaces for youth, etc., etc. Thank you very much.
Grazie anche per la suggestione.
Thank you very much for your suggestion about the observatory. Very interesting. Might take it up in future. Now I'll give the floor to Senator Simona Pedrucci, who's the head of delegation of the Italian Senate, the chairperson of the Committee on Women's Rights in Euro-Mediterranean countries of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Union for the Mediterranean. Thank you very much. A special thanking to Dora Antlighe, because she reported data, the data that we have been studying for a year. So this gap between the northern side and the southern side of the Mediterranean, we try to bridge this through projects. We will put forward these proposals in Malaga in the near future. We are dealing with the ambitious challenge to build the future of our Mediterranean region. That's our objective. We have to do that. How? How to promote the technological progress for the welfare of our generations. The subjects, STEM, they're called STEM subjects, are not only for some people, they are the access for the future for everyone. The gender gap, which is still present in these sectors, is an obstacle to our progress. And then in 2024, women account for 26% of the labor force within the sector of AI. And this imbalance not only is an obstacle to professional opportunities for women, but stems innovation and progress. Doubling the female participation in technological sectors would imply 600 billion euros more by 2027. So I think we have to change this situation, not only by changing the numbers, but by releasing potential which is not used at the moment. The underemployment of women in STEM subjects is linked to a number of stereotypes. For example, the idea that girls are less interested in engineering, digital subjects. This was observed in children of 6, in girls of 6 years old. Globally, 1 out of 3 STEM graduates is a woman. Only 1 in the southern side of the Mediterranean Sea is the opposite. Only 57% of women get a degree in STEM subjects, but only a small part of this find a job. Therefore, we must bridge these two gaps. So in the north and the south. In the north, we have to make sure that women take up STEM subjects at university, and in the southern, the women are allowed to access STEM jobs. So it's not only about increasing women in the STEM subject, but have a new vision where leadership, female leadership, is the norm. Therefore, we need to focus on developing green skills among women in order to allow them to participate in the green economy. Scientists, women scientists, can contribute to another fundamental initiative which was mentioned before, blue economy. Let me know, sorry for extending, but I must tell you something which is fundamental. The sea is not only a natural resource, but a search engine in a way. 220,000 jobs is the jobs created within this economy, the blue economy, which equals 64 billions. So 10.2 GDP nationally. So this sector is developing, and there is something more to add. That is, women and foreigners, youth employment is 9%, women 22%, and 7.4 are firms with foreigners. Therefore, here we're talking about a big share of the economy, a value economy, amounting to 197 million. So we're talking about fishing, renewable energy, tourism, and much more. So we need to eliminate stereotypes, prejudices that limit the aspirations of young people, creating platforms that connect education with jobs to create a network in the Mediterranean. So young women are the motor for the excellency. So we need to bring with us everyone. We can't leave women behind. Future means potentialities and responsibilities as well. So we're called to create a set new conditions of peace, growth, involving all our young people for the future, a future that can create growth in the Mediterranean basin for women and young people. Now we give the floor to the head of delegation of the Belgian Parliament, Mrs. Andri van Rietkegen.
Mr. President, esteemed colleagues, it is an honor and privilege to address this assembly today as a Belgian senator and Flemish representative. First and foremost, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to the organizers of this forum for their warm hospitality and excellent organization. The challenges facing the Mediterranean region are significant and complex. Conflicts, migration, climate change and socio-economic inequalities pose great trials for all of us. However, we can only tackle these challenges through cooperation and dialogue. Our region places great importance on multilateral cooperation and firmly believes in the power of dialogue as a driving force for sustainable peace and stability. As a member of the European Union and an active participant in international partnerships, Belgium and its regions remain committed to strengthening ties between the countries around the Mediterranean. This aligns with the objectives of our governmental agreements, which prioritizes international cooperation and the promotion of peace and security. In this context, I would like to confirm the importance of the themes focused on here in Grenada: peace and stability, migration. The Mediterranean is both a bridge and a border. We must continue working towards a balanced but strict approach that combines humanity with responsibility, ensuring that migration flows remain manageable and fair for all involved countries. And climate change. The impact of climate change on our regions cannot be underestimated. This brings me to here and now, to this Commission. If we want to achieve peace achieve human yet manageable migration, and create innovative solutions to cope with climate challenges, we need to invest in our youth, in education, in youth employment, and in equal opportunities for men and women. When we are able to debate here today, to meet each other in this historical city, it is thanks to our good education. The men and women meeting and debating here with an open mind and with great respect for each other, as an example we serve. Colleagues, until June, I was still teaching history to my students, and now I am sitting here as a representative. Not only my former students, but all our youngsters over our countries we represent here today are looking at us and putting all hopes on us, politicians and policymakers, to tackle these important issues together. As a teacher, I taught the history of the Middle Ages, a turbulent, long-lasting period of conflicts, but equally filled with great achievements as well. During that era, and despite the frontier position, Grenada was also an important intellectual and cultural center. It's a place that shows us that a blend of all these influences can eventually lead to a magnificent city. Today, this city provides us a moment and opportunity to go from a kaleidoscope of sometimes strong opinions and cultures towards a window of opportunity, one that opens up perspectives. And I conclude, this is the moment to highlight the importance of investing in young people and ensuring equal opportunities for men and women, because this means investing in the future of our regions. Colleagues, the Mediterranean is a region of immense historical, cultural, and economic wealth. Let us ensure that it also remains a region of peace and stability and prosperity. We can only achieve this by continuing to build on the foundations of cooperation and mutual respect. I appreciate strongly the constructive exchanges during this forum and wish everyone great success in this important dialogue. Together, we can make a difference. I thank you.
Grazie.
Thank you very much. Now, I give the floor to head of the delegation, the Grand Assembly of Turkey, Mr. Mustafa Hulki Sevisoglu.
Çok teşekkürler Sayın Başkan.
Thank you very much, Madam President. I am here as the head of the Turkish Grand National Assembly delegation. First of all, I am not only a parliamentarian in the Turkish Grand National Assembly, but I am a sociologist, but at the same time, I am the head of the Turkish Grand National Assembly Commission for Investigating Violence Against Women and All Forms of Discrimination. First of all, Turkey is working resolutely to ensure women's full and equal participation in social and economic life, to strengthen their status and to eliminate discrimination. Our Constitution has adopted the equality of women and men before the law as a fundamental principle. Well, in this regard, constitutional amendments supporting positive discrimination or affirmative action for women have been implemented, and the Civil Code, Penal Code, and Labor Code have been comprehensively updated with a gender equality perspective. Thanks to our women's empowerment policies, significant increases have been achieved in girls' school enrollment and attendance rates. The 2024-2028 Women's Empowerment Strategy document and action plan focuses on 5 key policy areas, namely education, health, economy, leadership, and participation in decision-making processes and environment and climate change in order to further advance women's rights. In addition, within the scope of the 12th Development Plan covering the years of 2024 and 2028, special measures such as quotas and additional supports for women's rights and women's empowerment are being implemented for the first time. With a great pride on behalf of my country, I would like to state that the OECD has listed Turkey among the first countries to successfully integrate gender equality into planning and budgeting processes. The women's political participation is also increasing in Turkey. As a result of May 2023 general elections, the percentage of women deputies in the Turkish Grand National Assembly reached a historic level of approximately 20%. After the 2024 local elections, the number of women mayors tripled in our country. Combating violence against women is one of our top priorities. The 2021-2025 Fourth National Action Plan to combat violence against women was prepared with the contributions of all stakeholders, and it provides a comprehensive framework to prevent violence at the local and national levels so that we can strengthen interventions in this area. In order to ensure stronger participation of women and youth in economic life, comprehensive policies and strategic projects are being implemented. On the other hand, the National Youth Employment Strategy has been implemented to mobilize the potential of the young population. This strategy was created to reduce youth unemployment, develop a broad skill set, and increase their participation in the labor market. Digital transformation is also an important part of these efforts and endeavors. Online platforms, virtual career days, and job fairs provide young people with easier access to employment opportunities and career guidance. Indeed, Turkey's comprehensive policies for gender equality and women's empowerment contribute to women and young people gaining a stronger place in the labor market. Thanks to the digital tools, Turkey indeed continues its determination to create a modern, competitive and resilient labor market via diversified education programs, digital tools. Well, we cannot talk about real development without providing the opportunities that the youth and women of this country deserve. In this context, we should prioritize youth employment at national and international levels and develop incentive mechanisms that will increase youth employment altogether. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Now let us give the floor to the head of the delegation of the People's National Assembly of Algeria, Mr. Nasser Batish. You have the floor.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim.
In the name of God, the pious and merciful, ladies and gentlemen, I am very pleased to address you today again. Our commitment is joint. We want to strengthen development, empower women and young people because they are the cornerstone of any type of proper development program. We firmly believe in the importance of the role of women as a way of creating a balanced society. Our president has made women and youth a priority so that they can both participate in our society. Algerian women have been at the root of all major changes in my country, including the Algerian Revolution. Up until today, that said, currently, we are trying to get rid of all barriers that hold women back from properly entering the job market, especially in marginalized areas. These are rights that are firmly entrenched in the Algerian constitution and in the Algerian legislature, i.e., the Algerian legislature has tried to deal with the problem of violence against women, and also passed a new law to empower women in all decision-making areas. Ladies and gentlemen, Algeria believes that the women should be empowered because it is a proper tool, especially starting in rural areas. It is important that we value the work of women, especially domestic labor, because it is a way to achieve independence, because women play a key role in the sustainable development of any country. Our public sector and ministries have tried to strengthen the role of women. We have made a lot of changes in the labor code. For instance, we have 5 months postpartum maternity leave. Also, when we talk about justice, women, we need to talk about Palestinian women who are confronted daily with all kinds of repression. They are subjected to violence, forced displacement, repression, and other forms of violence in Palestine. And women cannot flourish when they are subjected to invasions, and that's why we must do everything we can to support Palestinian women so that they can live in peace and in dignity, as all women should worldwide. Likewise, ladies and gentlemen, we should empower youth. Our policies include a strategy, a comprehensive strategy to empower young people in all sectors of the labor market. We hope that they can have an impact on decision-making. This is reflected in the creation of a Supreme Council for Youth. Also, we lowered the age for electoral eligibility. We have 92 members of the House representatives, and 11 of them are women. Of those young people are women. Entrepreneurship is very important, and we encourage permanent job training. Ladies and gentlemen, women and youth are a key part of any kind of strategy to fight against unemployment. And also, it's important to have a good balance between the education sector and the labor market. Also, we must fight against any type of gender-based violence. In Algeria, we believe that we should have fair policies to help women and youth. We need to jointly take responsibility for this in a single Mediterranean region. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much. And I give the floor to Mr. Nasri, the Mediterranean Youth Representative of Anna Lindh Foundation. Mrs. Nasri.
Thank you, Vice President. Esteemed guests, today I am sitting amongst you as part of the Anna Lindh Foundation delegation, an opportunity for which I extend my deepest gratitude. I am here as a representative of the Mediterranean youth from Algeria and as a beneficiary of the Mediterranean Youth in Action program. As a young woman from North Africa and a dedicated human rights advocate, I believe that the most essential quality we must cultivate in our work is empathy. Empathy allows us to see beyond our own realities, to feel with others, and to shape policies and practices that serve us all. And at the heart of empathy lies the recognition of our own privileges, especially the privilege of being here today, of raising our voices beyond our borders, and of mobility itself. Yet, too often, I have seen passionate, talented, and capable young people, especially from the southern region, excluded from the very spaces where decisions are made, not because of a lack of merit, but because of visa refusals and bureaucratic barriers, even when they are officially invited by prestigious institutions, companies, and firms. These young people, who should be shaping the future of the Mediterranean, are being denied access to the conversations that define it. We are gathered here to envision the future of our shared region. And if you allow me to be honest, there is no Mediterranean future without youth. And there is no meaningful cooperation without mobility. How can we build international cultural relations, diverse working spaces, foster peace, or strengthen collaboration without the basic ability to meet, to exchange, and to truly know one another? Without the freedom to move, our youth's full potential in the job market remains out of reach for all of us. This forum is not just a gathering, it's a call to action, a moment to rethink our approaches and find solutions that ensure young Mediterranean advocates and workers are not silenced by arbitrary conditions. We must propose tangible mechanisms such as special mobility visas for qualified youth, green corridors, and dedicated facilitation networks, because mobility, just like employability, is not a privilege and should not be a privilege. It is a fundamental right, and too many young people are being stripped of it due to agendas they had no part in shaping. At the same time, when we speak of gender equality, of the rights of women and girls, we must recognize that both shores of the Mediterranean hold invaluable experiences, best practices, and unique challenges. Every perspective is rich in knowledge, and every struggle is a lesson, and every success deserves to be shared. However, for over a decade, if not longer, the flow of knowledge, funding, and training has moved predominantly in one direction, from north to south. But expertise is not the privilege of one side. Solutions do not belong to a single geography. As a North African advocate for women and girls' rights, I sit here to remind you that the voices from the southern region are powerful. They carry stories of resilience, innovation, and vision. Stories that must be heard and integrated into our collective efforts. This is why I urge us all to rethink cooperation, not as a one-way exchange, but as a genuine reciprocal dialogue. Different contexts do not mean unequal contributions. The only way forward is to involve both sides from the very beginning in shaping policies, designing programs, and leading change. Let us build the Mediterranean where mobility is a right, not a luxury, where gender cooperation flows in both directions, and where youth voices are women's voices, especially from the South, are not only included, but are central. Let us open doors and let us co-create. And let us build a Mediterranean that belongs to us all. Lastly, as a young Mediterranean, I would like to invite you all to take a moment and to step out of your parliamentary role and to reflect on the massacres of women and children happening as we speak in Gaza, Rafah, Palestine. Unbearable pain is being lived every second, and we, Mediterranean youth, are urging you, our leaders, to cooperate more effectively to put an end to it as soon as possible. Thank you.
Grazie. Grazie a lei.
Thank you very much. Let us now give the floor to the representative of Jordan Chamber of Representatives, Mr. Ahmad Hamal.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم شكرا لكم.
In the name of Allah, the Almighty and Merciful, Deputy Speaker, it's always successful, a sign of success when a woman can achieve a position such as yours at the head of the European Parliament. And it's also a sign of success for all parliaments, everyone. So I would like to thank the Union for the Mediterranean. In Jordan, under the reign of King Abdullah II, since then we have believed in the importance of youth and women, and Her Excellency the Queen is working in this sphere, and we have undertaken significant measures, especially as regards the women in the labor force. All of this is, we've done this by periodically passing laws in favor of gender equality in terms of rights. Some of those laws were passed for instance, have reduced the age of eligibility for legislative elections. Also, a few days ago, we celebrated a major event that celebrated women and women in the labor force. It's important that women have access to the labor force. We agree with gender equality measures and laws to be taken in parliaments, and women should have equality in rights. We don't, in Jordan, all women and men have the same rights, duties, and salary. We believe in total salary equality. In Jordan, when it comes to supporting Palestine and as regards what is going on in our region, we see a lot of innocent people who are perishing. Women in Gaza are suffering particularly. It's a very difficult time, and we are living through a time of crisis, which we see through our television screens. We see that Zionists, arrogant Zionists, are attacking these people, and we see that this is clearly an act of genocide. And as a result, we must take clear action to support our brothers and sisters in Palestine, and Jordan's support such initiatives. Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Della Fondazione Andalin, il signor Joseph Ferré. No, ha voluto.
Thank you very much, Chair. In fact, in the Andalin Foundation, youth, gender, and also the Euromed approaches are our priorities. And I'm always highlighting the relevance of the Euromed approach, the multilateral approach, in order to tie bonds and create relations. In fact, we took advantage, as you know, of this forum to develop a first collaboration with the Parliamentary Assembly of the UFM to organize a side event. And and to complement and enrich the discussions. And we are very grateful to the Parliamentary Assembly to give the floor to a representation of youth in this event. So thank you very much for that. The Annalyn Foundation is very committed to continue this collaboration with the Parliamentary Assembly of the UFM and also with DMED. And the next step will be, I think, Malaga, the next summit of speakers on June. And we will try to do our best in order to again, collaborate with you, if you allow us, to enrich and to complement discussions. And we are ready at the Annalyn Foundation to make this collaboration structural and to initiate discussions also with the presidency, the next presidency of the Parliamentary Assembly of Egypt, to make it happen. And we are very much at the disposal of the organizers to make it possible in line with what the Commissioner Suiza referred to articulate the youth assembly in the region. So thank you very much.
Grazie e ora diamo.
Thank you very much. Now we would like to give the floor to the representative for youth in the Mediterranean of the Annalyn Foundation, Mrs. Elise Cooney. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Vice President, esteemed delegates. I am honored to contribute to the Forum for the Mediterranean as youth representative with the Annalyn Foundation delegation and as chair of the Association Culture Solutions, engaged in informing on the essential role and place of culture in European external relations. From the start of the Euro-Mediterranean Partnership in 1995, cultural cooperation was established as a pillar on equal footing with political dialogue and economic and financial cooperation, with the Barcelona Declaration calling for a partnership in social, cultural, and human affairs. The role of culture for youth well-being and gender equality is important to remember in these times of great geopolitical turmoil, wars, and rapid changes affecting countries and cultures, threatening cultural and natural heritage, and challenging civil societies. A common space for honest discussion among civil societies and genuine intercultural dialogue should never be taken for granted. The work accomplished by the Annalyn Foundation is a long-term effort carried forward by youth who believe in multilateralism and diplomacy like all of us around this table. The aspirations and ideals advanced over the last 2 days during this forum, peace, stability, prosperity, but also equality and empathy, will not become reality without the support for civil societies to exist, flourish, and have a voice. Across the Mediterranean, we see powerful youth and women-led initiatives protecting and promoting local cultures, quality education, and values for active citizenship, including projects in primary and secondary schools. These initiatives are essential in supporting states addressing the challenges of unskilled work, lack of employment, schools dropouts, equality of opportunities for girls, but also the rise of hatred and divisions in our societies. Even when political and financial support is missing, civil society organizations remain, keeping societal good and shared values as their compass. No further proof is needed to showcase the impact of a healthy and thriving space for dialogue for the Mediterranean. Civil society never collapses, and we should acknowledge here what a world without societal harmony and intercultural dialogue would look like. So it is high time that the policy framework steps up its recognition of cultural value. The coordinated efforts of the EU to safeguard and support the Ukrainian cultural sector and cultural heritage in response to the Russian full-scale invasion and aggression should serve as an inspiration and example in the Mediterranean too, with clear prospects for education, employment, and sustainable economy. Hence, the Pact for the Mediterranean should recognize youth and women-led civil society organizations, artists, and cultural professionals as essential guardians of the validity and continuity of the Euro-Mediterranean partnership. They should be supported by addressing essential obstacles to mobility, independence, dialogue, financial opportunities, and by truly listening to this plurality of voices across the region to fully reveal their potential for youth employment and gender equality. Thank you.
Grazie, grazie molte. E diamo...
Thank you very much. Now I'll give the floor to the National Representative of Jordan, Bani Melen.
Prego. Melem.
شكرا سعادة الرئيس. بداية أنا محمد بن
Thank you.
ممثل عن البرلمان الأردني.
My name is Mohamed Al-Hemman. I'm representative of the Jordanian Parliament. I'd like to say good morning to you. First of all, I would like to support the comments made by my colleague, also from Jordan, with regard to the real Hashemite leadership that is trying to consolidate equality and also promote the empowerment of women and young people, and to do everything possible to achieve those goals at an executive level through the government, at a legislative level too, seeking those legal instruments to be able to guarantee equal participation of women in all processes. That is why Jordan has made significant progress, starting off from the Jordanian parliament itself. If you look at the percentage of parliamentarians, the higher percentage is women. We are showing you that we are trying very hard to provide opportunities for women, including teaching at all levels. In our legislation too, a lot of progress has been made because women have been given a legal personality. That means that they have guaranteed essential participation at an executive level, a legal level, in all administrative procedures. Legislation has been passed so that this legal personality exists for women through a national commission. This is a very positive measure because women do need to be guaranteed that predominant role in all political procedures. Going back to women, empowerment and young people, it is, of course, very important, but we should not forget what is happening in Palestine. The barbaric acts there, the systematic, intransigent action taken by Israel against an innocent, isolated people, the Palestinian people. Israeli bombs do not pardon anybody. They are affecting all people, their women and children, and the world has reacted against this, and we need to adopt serious, firm measures against the indiscriminate action that has been taken by Israel, so that credibility is ours. So when we combat the systematic violence against an innocent population, as I said before, against women and children, the initiatives that we take, the credibility of them in the Mediterranean, are negatively impacted by this. This violence also demonstrates xenophobia, racism that is absolutely clear-cut, and this is perhaps not an explicit form of violence, but exists. It is another manifestation of the violence that is being perpetrated by the invading state against the Palestinians, together with forced displacement or deportation. That is also a crime against humanity. This is what Israel is doing against Palestine and the Palestinian people. We need to include this in our document of conclusions as we close this forum. We are part of the civil society. We have to defend and go against these transgressions.
Thank you very much. We now go to the last intervention for this morning. We have the representative for Turkey, Mr. Pistache.
Thank you very much, Madam President. First of all, I would like to thank Spain for hosting this event, and I would like to greet all of the participants with respect. Indeed, we are discussing a very important matter. We discussed the future of Mediterranean, and we should also take into consideration the gender equality, the role to be played by women, and the participation of the youth, of course, is of great importance. Frankly speaking, I am an MP from an opposition party, and I would like to state that we have 50% gender equality in our political party. With great pride, I would like to state that. And we have the co-leadership model in our political party, and we do believe that women's participation in politics is really important. Well, there is a reality, there is a fact that we should indeed underline. Gender inequality might change from one country to another, but unfortunately gender equality is a fact in different countries, and unfortunately the rights of women are violated all around the world, and this constitutes a huge problem for every one of us. And as a result, I do believe ensuring gender equality and the employment of women and the participation of women in decision-making mechanisms requires great effort and endeavor. And I hope and pray that this platform also contribute to those efforts and endeavors. Of course, what we have done is not enough. Unfortunately, still today, women are murdered because of the fact that they are women. They are subject to violence, and unfortunately, they lack equal pay. And the similar issue is valid for young people. And we can tackle this problem by working, not only by enacting new laws, but at the same time, we should also maybe amend the laws, and we should ensure that the international agreements are fully implemented. Only after then we can tackle this problem. And many speakers mentioned in their speeches, and we see that in terms of the employment, women have disadvantages. Just because of the fact that they are mothers, they cannot find, for example, a place to send their kids. So all of those disadvantages are unfavoring women. And this is the fact that we see in many countries. Last but not least, I would like to state the following. For the future of the world, in all geographies, without establishing women and men equality, we cannot talk of a fair life, a full-fledged democracy. Once again, I greet you all with respect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, to the participants of this panel. Very interesting. A great deal of work has been done. A lot of proposals will be put forward, so in the next future. So I can close now this panel. And thank you very much for whoever participated and spoke in this session.
sí, sí. No, se puede subir en un ordenador. Hay un ordenador ahí, sí. Hay un ordenador ahí que se puede subir la voz. Sí, que ayer la bajamos. Bueno, es un capricho, no pasa nada, no te preocupes. Venga, chao. No, están
because it's interesting to know from each other what we're doing with it. Oh, no, it's another one from somebody else.
Señoras y señores,
Ladies and gentlemen, let's begin our closing section for this Parliamentary Assembly on the occasion of Spain's presidency of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Union for the Mediterranean. The first speaker will be the Vice President of the European Parliament, Mrs. Pina Picciano.
Grazie, signore.
Thank you very much. Presidents, dear colleagues, it is a great honor for me to represent the European Parliament today on behalf of President Roberta Metsola. I thank the Spanish Presidency for the welcome it has given us in the magnificent setting of Granada and for the choice of the subject of this forum, the future of the Mediterranean, a title that calls for responsibility. Talking about the future implies in itself a shared responsibility. Talking about the future of the Mediterranean region means facing one of the most complex and strategic challenges of our time. The future of a region is determined by a number of complex and interconnected elements. Elements that we dealt with yesterday and today in the 4 thematic panels. And we listened to our guest. We heard very interesting speeches ranging from the political, economic to the social, cultural, and environmental issues. From our discussions, from the speech of the distinguished guests who participated in this 2-day debate, one element emerges, in my opinion. The future of this region is somewhat suspended between the need for stability, and I'm thinking of the urgency of achieving peace in the Middle East, and the inevitability of change, and I'm referring to the need to adapt to a changing world, which is changing fast, in which the international balances to which we were accustomed are changing radically. But adapting to a changing world requires the ability, the strength to collaboratively address political, economic, social, and environmental challenges. And we have to do that with a long-term vision that promotes trust among ourselves, good neighborly relations, structured cooperation, and inclusion. We are witnessing a new phase in international relations in which preserving multilateralism requires our determined joint commitment. The challenges of our time, from climate change to energy security, from economic stability to health emergencies, these challenges require a forward-looking approach. And only by recognizing this interconnection can we build, and will we be able to build, a future oriented towards shared and sustainable stability. In such a complex phase like the current one, the real strength lies in the ability to build agreements, dialogue with neighbors, and prepare together for the enormous challenges that lie ahead. The future of the region, our region, is not set, is not predetermined. It will depend on the concrete choices we make today and the choices we'll make in future and the path we decide to take. It will depend on the effectiveness of our joint action to find the path to peace and reconciliation in the Middle East. It will also depend on how and if we're able to tackle desertification together, and more generally, the dramatic impact of climate change. It will also depend on our collective capacity to create new jobs, to better manage migration flows, to fight together radicalization and all forms of terrorism together. It will therefore depend on our ability, let me tell you, our ability to see ourselves as a community. And at this very complex historical moment, parliamentary and cultural diplomacy play a key role. The Parliamentary Assembly of the Union for the Mediterranean should not only be a platform for discussion, but it should be a real vehicle for dialogue and cooperation in an increasingly fragmented international arena. In the face of divisions, conflicts, and global challenges, strengthening diplomacy between parliaments and enhancing cultural relations between peoples can be fundamental tools for rebuilding trust and promoting shared solutions. Our Mediterranean is a region of extraordinary cultural, economic, and geopolitical diversity. That's what we said over these 2 days. This diversity will be a richness only if we know how to equip ourselves with adequate political and cultural tools. Parliaments, our institutions, are the meeting place where different positions can meet, confront each other with sincerity and dialogue in the common interest. For history and vocation, it is therefore up to us, parliaments, through dialogue and cooperation, to ensure that the Mediterranean remains an area of peace, encounter, development, and growth, and can thus become an example for the rest of the world in a phase of uncertainty and difficulty like the one we're going through. Only in this way will we be able to guarantee a future, a better future for our citizens, for our young people, the people we listened to this morning, where we will not only survive in the international arena, but we will be also able to prosper together, facing together in a shared way the difficulties of our time. Thank you, everyone.
Interviene a continuación.
The next speaker will be the Deputy Speaker of the Chamber of Representatives of Egypt, Mr. Mohamed Abouleninin.
Bismillah. اسمحوا لي.
In the name of God. First of all, let me say to all of you, thank you so much. My sincere thanks, of course, to the Spanish Parliament. So, dear Speaker, Francina Armengol, and Speaker of the Senate, Pedro Royan, and to the whole family involved in this event. It's the organization, the themes, the logistics, the hospitality, the welcome have been excellent. And therefore, I would say thank you to all of you. A round of applause is, yes, very fitting. Excellencies, colleagues, I am a parliamentarian with extensive experience. I have attended many meetings, many conferences on international Mediterranean affairs. And the level of emphasis here, the good intentions and the good feeling between Parliament and members of government and executive branches about the convictions, the willingness to move forward with proposals over the last 2 days has been quite unparalleled. So I would say congratulations, my sincere congratulations to all of you for the excellent interventions and the invaluable proposals that have been put forward and that are being put into practice. There is a commitment that we have to take on. The other side, the government, the Commission, there is a very, very active, enthusiastic president there. We have been able to get to know each other, and I have been able to see the enthusiastic and real cooperation between two sides of the Mediterranean. This new cooperation has to be adequate for a new era. It's an era of pacts and dialogue and new initiatives and new ideas. I would ask and urge all parties, representatives of European parliaments, to join us in this series of initiatives and to consolidate those initiatives and make sure that they can be completed successfully. There have been proposals made today that will certainly build that new era. And there is a question that really needs to be borne in mind. It's the future. And if we do not address the future using the accumulated wisdom that we have, we will not be able to then bring in something novel, something new, if we don't face the failures of the past. At other times, on other occasions, we were not so successful in political, economic, and social terms, were we? We have had to address new commitments over recent times, and the problems that we are facing are getting bigger. We have to be on the front line. And I think it's the news from Gaza that are really there, hanging over us. Tragic, dreadful news. The news that we are receiving from people whose daughters and sons have been murdered, families who are dying of hunger, families who have had to leave behind their homes because of the bombing of the area day in, day out. These are heartbreaking messages, and they make us sit down and think with our minds and think with our hearts. What can we do about this problem? It is time now for Israel to make that commitment to comply with international law, its precepts, its principles, and for all of us to come together to urge our friends and our partners up there in the U.S. administration that to say the U.S. president is a person, and initially he said he was seeking peace. He has the ability to get peace in the region, but it has to be a comprehensive, fair, proportionate peace, taking into account the rights of the Palestinians, and deportations, displacements, voluntary or otherwise, have also to be dealt with voluntary or forced displacements will never be accepted under any conditions by the Palestinian people. Egypt is now the country that has put forward a tangible solution. It has been accepted by the Arab League, by the Islamic Council, and by some European countries too. It's an initiative that is about providing the humanitarian aid needed, the basic services, the medicines, clothing, to be able to rebuild the houses. Not just infrastructure has been destroyed, homes, houses themselves, people have nowhere to live or no roof over their heads. We've also urged reconstruction programs to be put together in this transition period and going forward. It's time now for these initiatives to take tangible form and to be included in our recommendations and in our closing statements. So my sincere thanks to all parties seeking peace, peaceful parties. And let's hear from new initiatives because we're living a new reality. It's a new era. So I would say welcome to all constructive proposals, to proposals for constructive dialogue, all of those recommendations that are being put forward. And I would say to you all, looking ahead to the Egyptian presidency, that all of those recommendations, all of those requests and proposals will be listened to and dealt with very, very closely and with great interest. Any recommendation, proposal, or idea that is seeking to build bridges and to achieve a more prosperous, cordial and peaceful future will be listened to. We are committed and we have full empathy and a willingness to adopt any proposals that go in that direction. We've also talked with the language of figures, statistics. We need financial instruments, technological instruments. We need to take into account all of those indicators, those instruments, to be able to work towards the goals. And let me emphasize again that the strength of our young people who have participated in our forum today and yesterday is so important, with their conviction, with their willingness, with their mental strength and intellect. I think they have given us a bright picture of youth for the future. Ladies and gentlemen, the Egyptian presidency, which will take over for the next meeting, will play an important role in this area. And we will do what we can to achieve our goals, and I'm absolutely convinced that we will be able to build a Euro-Mediterranean future on the basis of harmony and peace and everything positive for us in the Euro-Mediterranean area. How can we create a better future? How can we cooperate? We also need to bring in academia, schools, universities, institutions. They should also help us to build up that future. So I would urge all parties to participate in this venture. I'm absolutely convinced that together we can build up with our different proposals, with our different ideologies, this future. I believe that we can harness our endeavors to get that better future. Once again, I would urge an end to be put to the conflict and the barbaric actions taken by Israel. No to deportations. No more intransigence. No more Israeli invasion. Israel must respect international law. And the two-state solution. It's the only logical, feasible and realistic solution to this conflict that has been dragging on for so long. Thank you very much for listening. Have an excellent day.
Seguidamente
The next speaker will be the Speaker of the Chamber of Representatives of Morocco, Mr. Rachid Talibi El Alami. You have the floor.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين السيد الرئيس.
In the name of Allah, the Almighty and the Merciful, Madam Armengol, ladies, gentlemen, Excellencies, I agree with what Mr. Mohammed Aboulanine had just said, and I would like to join him in thanking our Madam Speaker for organizing this wonderful meeting. And I would ask everyone to also join me in thanking His Majesty King Philippe VI for joining us in the inaugural ceremony of this forum. Thank you to all of the local authorities in Grenada. Ladies, gentlemen, the Spanish presidency has been a resounding success in deciding on holding this meeting here in Grenada. Grenada is a symbol and a representation of the meeting together of North and South, East and West. After 2 days of discussion and exchange and reflection, logically and unfortunately, we also receive news from Gaza and Palestine, but we have come to the end of our meeting with a positive outcome. 30 years after the start of the Barcelona process, we meet with, at the time there was hope and aspirations. After the Madrid conference as well, we are meeting 27 years after launching the Mediterranean Partnership. In 2004, the Parliamentary Assembly of the Union for the Mediterranean was established, and over the course of the last 30 years, the Mediterranean Partnership has achieved many things politically, socially, in terms of human rights, democracy, science, at the bilateral and multilateral levels. That said, all of our achievements are not at the level of our hopes, or the hopes of the Mediterranean people. That is why we have to examine the repercussions of our association, because we must achieve peace, security, freedom for all. We're tired of so much war and conflict, and unfortunately, armed conflict and the conflict in the Middle East, which is engendering other types of conflicts and is the cause of radicalization in the area. And the violence in Palestine is the main conflict upon which all of this rests. But if we must redouble our efforts in any way, it would be to find a solution to these conflicts. We need fair monitoring and conclusion of this conflict in Palestine. We need to have a state with its capital in Jerusalem and a two-state solution. The Middle East can accept a two-state solution, one state for Israel and one of a Palestinian state. Madam Speaker, ladies, gentlemen, excellencies, over the course of the last 2 days, we have been able to speak of the challenges we all face in our region: youth employment, gender equality, climate change are all dilemmas and a challenge for all of humanity. We have seen also forces that try to destroy our bases, and the only thing we must remember is we must uphold international law. For instance, when it comes to immigration, we must remember and take into account all of the international agreements about migration. We also must take account for the reasons for migration. For instance, warring states. In the Second World War, some armies depended on African fighters. After World War II, in the post-war period, also the European countries relied on African workers. And a lot of industries today rely on workers from Africa. And today, African nations who have suffered a great deal from the scourge of colonialism need assistance. And this would be the only way to put an end to the business that has become human trafficking. If Europe but Grenada would not be what it is today were it not for immigration. And so it's important that we coexist, that we exchange dialogues, culture between all of our civilizations. We've historically had a Greek civilization, a Roman civilization, Viking civilization, have all existed in this area. And this coming together of civilization is what can make a place like Grenada possible. The shared experience between Morocco and Spain and our relationship today is proof positive of of that effect. All of the members of the United Nations speak of climate change and how best to handle it. We cannot just content ourselves with drafting declarations. The Spanish-Moroccan partnership in this field is a good example of how we can work together. For instance, desalination efforts to create water for irrigation is important. And it is also true that developing countries cannot pay for errors that developed countries have made. We must take back a part of what was taken from us in Africa during colonialism. And it is true that many African countries are still suffering the effects of that colonialism, and nevertheless international law must prevail. We must be very clear when we must unite our forces. As parliamentarians, we must be very firm in making sure we must speak in favor of territorial integrity. We all agree that if we do not act decisively, if we do not put an end to the armed conflict in our areas, well, then all of the people and institutions of Mediterranean countries will be weaker. We need to actively protect our civilizations. We need to avoid foreign intervention and fight against radical ideologies in our area. We must foster proper values, knowledge, diplomacy, and reasoning, and come out as a reference and a leader in the international community as a region. Our Mediterranean alliance needs to play a prominent role in the international sphere. We need to have a hand in decision-making at the international level, precisely in all of the areas we have discussed, especially in this time where we see a climate of distortion and many problems. We must uphold democratic values such as living together, coexistence, human rights, peace, tolerance, against hatred. And here also I'm talking about, I speak about experience we've seen in Morocco in our House of Representatives, our experience with Europe. We want to continue working towards this shared destiny. On the African continent, we are very capable. We are able of working on in different partnerships. We need to continue to be involved because we have a lot of human and other resources to contribute, and we need to continue to close the breach between North and South, because the source, a lot of the problems in the North, a lot of the solutions to the problems in the North can be found in countries of the South. So I would like to thank all of the local institutions of the most beautiful city of Granada. Thank you, everyone in your respective parliaments. Thank you all.
To conclude, we will hear the address by the Speaker of the Congress of Deputies of Spain, Mrs. Francina Armengol. Thank you very much to the Speaker of the House of Representatives for the Kingdom of Morocco, the Deputy Speaker from the House of Representatives of the Arab Republic of Egypt, the Vice President of the European Parliament, esteemed speakers, deputy speakers and heads of delegation, also to the Secretary of State for the Social Economy. Dear friends, it's a great pleasure to be able to close this forum on the future of the Mediterranean after listening to the interesting thoughts and contributions made by all of the representatives of parliaments and committees, and also from our guest speakers who have intervened during these 2 intense days of discussions. I do believe that the conclusions adequately reflect the common feeling of those of us who have participated. Let me, if I could, summarize some of those conclusions. As in previous meetings of the presidency, the conclusions try to reflect a comprehensive approach to migration based on cooperation between countries of origin, transit, and destination, on the basis, too, of a constructive consideration of migration as a reality that is also an opportunity for all countries affected and by all citizens. And We cannot deny the huge challenges entailed by the constant and continuous migratory pressure on some of the main receiving countries. But it is also true that migration can be very beneficial for all countries. That is why we have wanted to emphasize the search for actions that we can agree on, solidarity and shared responsibility, without leaving aside the complex situation that we are seeing in the Middle East now, or the enormous challenges of climate change, or the employability of a young population that is increasing in the region, especially women. As well as the work of all of the representative parliaments, I would like to thank very sincerely the engagement of this Assembly's committees that participate very actively in all of the meetings. Especially, I would like to thank the Political Committee for its very interesting contribution during that first session on the situation in the Middle East. Friends, I think over these 2 days, what has become clear to us is that we are under the obligation to stress the importance of keeping alive the attention on our sometimes forgotten Mediterranean regions. So I would encourage, therefore, future presidencies of the Parliamentary Assembly for the Union for the Mediterranean. Here I turn especially to our dear friend and Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives of the Arab Republic of Egypt, to build a regular agenda of meetings that will allow us to keep meeting each other periodically. Our engagement in the regional forums of the executive branch of the Union for the Mediterranean is essential, because we are living through extraordinarily complex times. Our actions, our mutual support, and our ongoing analysis of the situation have to be up to the task. I would then invite you to hold a meeting on the occasion of the Day of the Mediterranean. That will be on the 28th of November, coinciding with the 10th Regional Forum in Barcelona, to take stock of the successes and failures of our regional partnership over the last decades. And of course, I would like to thank once again the work done by the Anna Lindh Foundation, which we have seen in the voices of its young representatives who have gifted us in our discussions the vision of the people who will be the leading players, not just of our future, but who are already the protagonists of our present. It has been an opportunity for us to hear the concerns of the people who are seeking agreements that will take us closer to a prosperous, stable and peaceful Mediterranean. And also, I would say, as we've heard from Joseph Ferret, it would be a great idea to be able to consolidate that relationship between the Union for the Mediterranean and the Anna Lindh Foundation with an agreement that would perhaps give that relationship tangible form. We've also received over these 2 days a letter from our friend who is with us today, the Speaker from the Parliament of Malta, Mr. Farrugia. In the letter, he's suggesting the creation of a group of speakers of Mediterranean parliaments. I think the format of this particular forum on the future of the Mediterranean might be used as the first edition of that group, and if it could be continued on into the future and accepted by future partnerships or Parliamentary Assembly presidency. That's why I would hope to see you at the next Speakers' Summit and plenary session of the Parliamentary Assembly for the Union for the Mediterranean that will be held in Malaga on the 25th to the 27th of June this year. At that meeting, we will have a chance to adopt an agreement on that, as well as to present the recommendations of the Assembly's committees and to say farewell to our own presidency and hand over to the Egyptian Parliament to take over the role of president. I don't want to finish without congratulating every single one of you, because over these days you have shown us quite clearly that dialogue and solidarity are the best possible tools to be able to build up that common destination and destiny. In Granada, this ancient city has been a witness once again of the fact that our Mediterranean is a horizon of hope. I would also like to close by thanking everyone who has made this possible. The workers and team members in all of our delegations, they have made it possible for us to have a declaration, which I'll mention now. The members of your teams in all your delegation. I also said the interpreters as well, who have been working for us over these 2 intense days of work, and also the people working here in this conference center, the Palacio de Congressos, for working with us, and everybody serving us lunch and coffee and cleaning all the rooms. Every single person who has made it possible for this to have been a wonderful experience. Now let's move on to the declaration and the conclusions that we have drafted jointly together, all of the delegations. Let me explain. The text that you've got in front of you, to which we have been making contributions to over the last few days, we've added in, of course, the input from different delegations as we've gone along. So we would also include in the final text, this would be item number 3. It's a proposal from the Egyptian delegation. At the end, we would say we express our full support for the 2-state solution, which establishes that the Palestinian and Israeli citizens can live peacefully side by side. We also support the Egyptian plan for the reconstruction plan that was presented in Cairo in March, and that was supported by the Arab League and the Islamic Cooperation Council. Turning to point 10, we would add, we would add actually another point 10. This is also proposed by Egypt. Congratulate the city of Tirana for being designated a Mediterranean Capital of Culture 2025, and Alexandria for being designated the Mediterranean Capital of Dialogue 2025 in the first edition of this joint initiative of the ALF and the UFM to celebrate the Euro-Mediterranean identity and cooperation, to be followed by Tetuan and Matera in 2026. So moving on to section 2, which is titled Specific Challenges Posed by Migratory Flows in the Mediterranean Region. Turning to point 13, we would say at the beginning, this is a proposal from Morocco, acknowledge the progress made with the adoption of the Pact on Migration and Asylum as a set of new rules managing migration and establishing a common asylum system at EU level, designed to manage and normalize migration for the long term, as well as the progress is made in national immigration and asylum laws of Mediterranean partner countries. And then moving on to point 14, this is a proposal from Jordan and Spain. We would add somewhere in the middle there a sentence that says that it would denounce and fight against racist and xenophobic speeches and call for the implementation or to acknowledge the benefits. No, let me begin that again. Denounce and combat racist and xenophobic speeches and call for the implementation of awareness-raising measures and programs for the migratory reality. And then it would continue as drafted. These are the last minute amendments that have been made that has helped us to lead to the broad consensus we've reached in Granada. I thank you for that. So if you agree, we can approve this declaration by consensus of the parliaments here present. And over the next few days, we will produce a list of all of the parliaments that will be supporting this declaration in this version. So could we give a round of applause to everybody who's worked on this? Thank you very much.
Pues damos por terminado.
So that brings this forum to a close, and if you'd like to stay on, we will take you to a lunch together. Thank you.